the Neil Lamptey Show. My name is Joey, and this week I am joined by Laurie.
All right, mate.
And by Imogen.
Hi, Joey.
Right. First game, first league game, moments of the week. Laurie, you start us off, mate.
I would probably go for something mundane, like today I was made aware of the fact that I'm allowed to buy a season ticket tomorrow morning, which is quite exciting. And
on
you
what
get
basis?
a free
On what
shirt.
basis?
I'm sorry?
On what basis are you in tomorrow? Are you the match package guy?
So one of our associates, mine and Imo's, he had a season ticket last season, so he was always our source for away tickets. But at a certain point in the year, he got so annoyed with us making him buy us tickets that he forced me to buy a completely meaningless membership just so that I had to give some money to the club, which made him happy. I would have preferred, I don't know what I would have preferred, but it really hurt me that I had to just give this meaningless cash to the club. It's only like £12 or something. But anyway, so now that's actually come up trump. So thank you very much, Mr. G. So yeah, I'm a member now, and I've got a season ticket tomorrow with some weird kit. Apparently, it's like a third kit that we'll wear once and has my name on the back.
It does seem what you've just said there, like the sort of thing that happens down south. Do you know what I mean?
What sort of thing?
Well, the whole thing just was, kind of, someone you had been like scavving a season ticket, and then someone had made you buy a membership for something. That does seem like the sort of thing that I think probably only the Metropolitan London elite will understand. I'm not sure that real people will get that reference. I don't know whether you want to revise.
This is just part of your campaign to build a schism between the Southerners in this podcast, aka me, and everybody else.
Well, actually, Imogen is a Southerner as well, I believe. And I'm more than happy to drive a wedge between any. Let's get that going. Yeah. No, that's very good then. Okay, Imogen, moment of the week.
Thrilled as I am that Laurie will have a season ticket. Mine is a little more. I'm dreaming bigger, in that Callum Wilson got his dream move to Newcastle United. So I've been treated to many photos of him in monochrome, which brings out his teeth beautifully, and it's lovely. For me, he is my favourite player since we dropped out of the Prem. I know we're very pro Maddison on the Neil Lamptey Show, but just a little word for Callum. I don't think he gets enough credit, and I'm very excited for him. The 2 million to 3 million that we're going to get allegedly will be lovely. I'm sure Robbins will spend it expertly well. But it's just really nice to see. It's nice to see a Cov kid doing well and achieving things and not going to the Villa.
Yeah, that was very pleasing. Did anyone watch it on Match of the Day where where Alan Shearer was talking about how Newcastle had to catch up with Wilson's level of ability and the way that he played? That especially to me was really nice. They kept showing
the kind of thing that he teased Jermaine Jenas for, because Jermaine Jenas went off on one once in a post-match punditry, talking about how he found it difficult to come back from England duty to the Newcastle team because it was like
the humdrum of
dropping down to like local football. And then Alan Shearer was just like, "Oh, I apologise, Jermaine, that we were so much too bad for you."
I apologise if I'm sort of regurgitating my boring Twitter opinions here. But I said the other day that there are some players who, I remember when Teddy Sheringham joined Man United, it felt really jarring seeing him in a Man United shirt for quite a long time. But the converse of that is that Callum Wilson looks like he's been wearing a black and white striped shirt for a very, very long time. It just seems to fit very nicely, doesn't it?
Yeah. And he looked really comfortable. He seemed to have a lot of chances. He was creating a lot, and he looks fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's also joining them at a semi under pressing time. Like Newcastle have signed some relatively interesting players. Admittedly, they've the bid from the kind of human rights abusers hasn't gone through, which is a crying shame.
Because we would need more of them in the Premier League, really, don't we?
Yeah.
I also like the idea of Wilson and Carol look very happy together, and I feel like that would be quite a good pair of people to go on a night out with. You get the impression that Carol might push things too far, but Wilson would
Of
always
course.
rein it back in just a little bit.
Yeah, he'd be the one holding your hair back as you vommed in the toilet.
Yeah, which for Carol, I guess, is presumably why he sees him as such an asset.
Wait, but
Right,
Imo, weren't you telling me a story about Carol on Saturday about him and Nolan and having to tell some fibs to like Nolan's wife because Nolan had to babysit Carol while he played at Newcastle because he couldn't be trusted to live on his own.
That
And they
wasn't
had to
me, I'm afraid.
that must have been Danny. And they just had to explain away some mystery circumstance where two girls came round and took illicit street drugs. Just them, not the boys. The boys didn't partake. And also there were two girls, and when Nolan was quizzed on this, he was like, "Yeah, oh, they were both Andy's girls." Oh, okay. Why didn't you say so? That's
I I'm more laughing there at the use of the term illicit street drugs. Which makes you sound more like a teacher than you normally do. I'm gonna break with the theme of this and actually go for something that happened in the game we're about to talk about.
Don't do that.
Which I'm gonna go for a bit of Leo Ostergaard um, bicycle kick.
Mm.
I like the idea that I remember when we signed Aaron Gunnarsson that there was this talk that there had been a fans forum where people had complained that we hadn't got a long throw taker. And then when we signed him, it was suggested that that was like something that had been directly addressed, as opposed
okay.
to being a happy coincidence that
Focus
they were
group.
able to address as something that they were going to do anyway. And that I like the idea that they're like, wow, we think we're probably going to let Biamu go, but it is going to be crucial that the fans are appeased with someone that's happy to bicycle kick everything that comes anywhere near them. So I thought it was a really good effort, but it was nice just to see that we're keeping that up as something that we're going to try and do for the foreseeable future.
Was that the
Um,
like sideways bicycle kick that was like not
Yeah.
quite a look
yeah,
over your shoulder and see where it goes? It was more like I can kind of see where this is going.
I think of that as being a Dal Piero, but I don't know whether that it's not common parlance. That's just sort of for me. I think that's quintessential Dal Piero, but I don't think I could just say he did a Del Piero and that be familiar enough to people to know what I mean. But I don't know. I don't know what is a bicycle kick or a scissor kick. I'm happy to sort of throw them all in one big lump.
I've also heard cyclone as well for the
No,
sideways one.
no, thank you. That feels like the sort of thing that Neymar would say.
It's quite an
Yeah, exactly. So,
Mm.
like American things now. Right, the Laurie, you're going to start us off, aren't you? So, if you can bear to do so, would you talk about the game for a little bit?
Yeah, happily will do so. Just kind of easing myself into what is the new normal of paying £10, which somehow felt like a rip-off, even though I was like, this is almost a third of the price of what you'd normally pay, and I haven't had to get a train anywhere, and I'm still in my pants. So all of those things kind of, I'm sure loads of people are really into that. And just the iFollow thing, I shouldn't start with technology, but is it crap or am I just being like a granddad?
No, it is crap.
Like the system for letting you know it's about to start is like a big empty screen with like a confusing wiggle that gives you no information. And that's meant to put your mind at rest at 1 minute to three, being like, cool, game's about to start. Looks like it's about to start. No, it doesn't. It looks like I'm in completely the wrong place. Oh, it
I've
just,
I've got the Transylvania pass, as you know, and
yeah.
I didn't know that the cup game last week wasn't included in it. It was very hard to decipher that because the way that they chose to tell me was that when you tried to watch the game, a button that said live appeared above the screen, and the commentary happened with just a different screen. So you're like, oh, it's worked, and then it's like 2 minutes past three, and you're like, this should be on by now, I imagine. Shouldn't it? It doesn't say this is just the commentary or whatever. It's the screen. It says live, but there's no game happening behind it. You kind of think you could give me a clue, at least.
What was really painful as well was kind of like if you ever went to like your rich cousin's house and just they showed you how much better their house was than yours. Because I had this Bristol City fan with me, one of my old friends. he then logged into his Bristol City account and was like, oh, look how it works on mine. And it's like looking into like a portal from the future where everything's like perfect technology. I was like, ooh, that looks a lot better than what I'm looking at. And we were then watching it with Bristol City commentary for the first 5 minutes, but quickly.
How posh is your cousin that you would envy them? Sorry.
No, they had a nice house.
Anyway, you can talk about the game. I can't believe that I started off this by saying you're going to try and not talk about the game, and then that as a joke, and yet we've not talked about anything that's happened so far.
But I feel like that is a universal concern this season, so I'll move on. But I think that needed to be addressed.
Well, it's not just this season. If anyone's read your blog, I mean, the 3/4 of it is taken up by existential musings and then some chat about the game, which I love. Don't get me wrong, it's fabulous.
And this season's going to be no different. It's just going to be me complaining about the iFollow loading icon for 9 paragraphs. Yeah, so once we did get it on, we were losing. But we did catch the replay, which I've watched a lot of times. And call me crazy, but I don't think anyone really does anything wrong. Like, McFadzean comes for a header that he then realizes he shouldn't have come for, so then like backtracks. But by that point, the flick on has left him slightly out of position, which leads to the man being free down the left to then cross it in. And yes, left back should probably be covering it, but everything happens so fast that like we haven't touched the ball.
Yeah, you're right.
They
should slow football down, shouldn't they?
They should slow it down. Just be like, this is what we're about to do, just to give you a little bit of warning. But yeah, I mean, poor guys. Like, I can just imagine myself being that left back and just being like, oh, Christ's sake, you don't expect them to just try and score instantly. But
guys, the season has just started.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like the longest injury stoppage of all time. Just take it a bit easy for the first 5 minutes.
But I'm gonna straight away ask for a sober opinion here and say, Imogen, where do you stand on this?
I disagree. I think we were slow. We were just too slow. I really don't know what you were watching, Laurie, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you could. I think there were three very clear opportunities to not let that happen, and that.
Where?
I think it starts with is it Ostergaard on the right hand side for a start? It's covering where sort of very far right, and I think the ball could have been stopped, and I think the Patterson at the back post is basically he hasn't got a player within 10 yards of him. I don't know what tactics board you're using where you don't think that could have been defended better.
It's impossible. We don't touch the ball.
Yeah, but
they were too good.
Okay.
I know how you're desiring perfection in the first 20 seconds of our first game in the championship for what feels like 50 years. What planet do you live on?
I don't want perfection. I just don't want to concede. I don't think that's a lot to ask, but
I think it really took the edge off the day conceding within 20 seconds. I could relax after that. Because then it was like, now we're just the plucky upstarts. Anything else is a bonus. Fine.
Is that your entire review of the first half?
Did you not just hear the mic drop on the floor quietly?
Yeah.
No, there's loads more. We were actually really good, and I reckon going 1-0 down calmed us down slightly, because it was like, well, we can't fuck it up any more than we already have. So let's give it a go, because as I said in the last pod, I was pretty scared of Bristol City. But then we hit the post pretty quickly. Callum O'Hare was looking pretty interested and exciting and not making too many bad decisions. And almost, well, we were playing much better than them. And my kind of barometer for this was how stressed out my friend Danny was getting, just bemoaning everyone in their side. Even one of their right backs is like 12 years old and costs 9 million quid, which I just couldn't get my head around. And there are people who played in the Prem, but none of it really seemed to matter. We were playing like triangles in quite tight spaces and keeping the ball in a way that I would not have had the confidence to do. And I don't know why I keep putting myself in these positions. I'm never going to play for country. But they just had a level of confidence playing in this division that I really wouldn't have expected them to have. And that was quite encouraging. And then when we scored, it was deserved. So Gordon started the move. He played in O'Hare down the right, who pulled back a good ball, which got cleared. And then Godden, I know you could probably try and say that that was an amazing finish, but he kind of just pings it directly at the keeper and all the defenders, and somehow it goes in. So obviously no one cares. It went in, so that's all that matters. But
Where do you
I don't
stand on
think he
that
was.
finish, Imogen? Because I actually felt slightly different to this. I had an argument with a mate of mine who was watching it, who saw the goal on Sky Sports, and he was saying it was a tap-in. And I was like, well, at the very least, it's more than a tap-in because he's got to get it round about
Yeah,
four
he had
players.
more to do than that.
Yeah, I think, but I also think that I don't think any of us know this for definite. I think it's about where your starting position is for what you want to see. But my viewing of it was that I think he had looked up and that was a deliberate thing, and that was his. Like, he could have done a lot of different things. He could have tried to place it either side of the group, or he could have absolutely wailed it. I think he did deliberately hit it low and where it was because he thought that was the best place to get it through. But I think, like I say, I think that might be what I imagine of it. What did you think,
But
Imogen?
didn't he? But didn't he actually whale one in almost identical circumstances against Ipswich in our final game of last season? Do you
Yeah,
remember that pullback?
but players are complex, aren't they? They don't have to do the same thing every single time. Like, he might have learned. Like, he might have watched and been like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that again."
I think he did it deliberately, but I wouldn't back him
Cool.
to do it again in the same position. A lot of things had to go his way for it to go in, and maybe
Yeah, that's true.
he had anticipated that, but it was lucky. But I mean, I'd take it any day of the week.
For me, I don't have, and I don't mean this to be terribly rude, I don't have the massivest opinion of Godden as an overall footballer. I think I want him to be on the end of every chance as long as he can stay on side. But that I I was terribly impressed by the fact that a good, really well paced through ball started the move from him, and that he'd got the instincts to not then just go charging into the box, but that really timed that really well so that he was on the right end of where it spilled out to. I thought it was really smart from him overall.
Mm.
Go on, Laurie, where are you
Yeah,
going to take us from there?
because who is that person who's in the box in front of him getting tackled? It
So
doesn't
hair.
actually
Oh
play
no,
that
so
much
hair
attention.
that takes the. Presumably it is Alan, I would guess,
Giles.
but I don't know. Maybe it's Giles. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. He's good that he doesn't just go bowling in because otherwise that goal doesn't happen. But yeah, does the plane celebration, happy days. And so
Happy days for
then,
Jordan Shipley,
well,
who fulfilled his ultimate destiny for this season, which is going to be kind of appearing every so often to help celebrate a goal.
he was on the pitch by that point because yeah, Kel's got injured. And so it'll be so interesting to see what happens to Shipley this year because that is a lot of jumps in a short space of time for someone who is slightly lacking a lot of technical requirements for this division. But he has enough going for him that I feel that, like you say, he could score 7 goals and have like kind of a not very good season in many ways. He could still be making the same mistakes over and over again, which
How
he
did you
did.
feel? How did you feel he stepped up when he came into the game?
He made quite an early mistake of just passing it when we were relatively short at the back and just passed it directly to a Bristol City player, but then recovered and won the ball back. And I was like, that's very Shipley. Make the mistake, but do enough to cover yourself so then everyone remembers the great covering tackle. It's like a player like, I don't know, Kelly, for instance, just doesn't do either of those things. And then you don't benefit from the positive opinion or the negative opinion. Nothing happened. You didn't give the ball away, so you didn't have to clean it up afterwards. So I think
Who
that's
are
just
the
the Jordan way, isn't it?
Slight
get their
tangent here,
attention.
but who are the marquee COF players for that kind of behaviour? Because the people that stick out in my head would be Clinton Morrison, who would routinely give the ball away cheaply, but then chase it back down to a round of applause. And likewise, Richard Keogh would be another one that would lose the ball, then sort of half get it back and throw himself on the floor, win a free kick somehow, and people would be terribly impressed with. Because there are sort of a group of players that sort of fit that. Anyone else that you can think of that would that springs to mind?
I think McFadden did it in the game
Yeah, he did.
early on. He
Yeah.
he did something very similar, and I was amazed that he managed to track back. So, all is not lost.
I guess it's
I think
better.
also the most famous proponent of that has got to be David Beckham. Do you not remember his absolute love of losing the ball and then just going charging in way over the top and just like almost definitely get booked every time? But then
Lionheart.
everyone was like, "Oh, he's so committed."
Lionheart,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Anyway,
well,
sorry, I've took you off on a tangent. Go on, mate.
no, that's it. Wait. Do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, I mean, if you would. Well, you don't have to. If that's the first half done.
No, it's not done. I've got loads more, mate. Loads more of this.
Okay.
A few observations. We're still doing that fullbacks thing. So when we have goal kicks, we drop them into the penalty box, and the Bristol City players look a little bit confused, being like, "You realise you're in a real division now. You can't just kind of mess around with your funny little like flying V from Mighty Ducks." But
Did anyone see
we
that
still seem to be
statistic the
doing.
other day about the use of that rule last season? I think we had used it more than anyone else in League One, and then Wickham didn't do it once. Didn't so specifically playing a goal kick into your own box. Wickham hadn't
Yes,
done it
I saw that.
once.
Yeah.
I think possibly goes to show you that not one way to win football matches.
Does it mean that the opposition aren't allowed in the box still, or are they
Yeah.
allowed in too?
No, it's got to be that they've got to wait for the ball to be played before they can come in. I
They've
think.
got.
Although that would be a brilliant Zaire-esque kind of checking of the rules.
But if you just applied very narrow knowledge to football, which I obviously do quite often, you could say that if you pass to your fullbacks inside your own box from goal kicks, you will win the league.
No, I'm saying that's not what I was saying. I'm saying that Wickham didn't do it once, and we did it more than anyone else in the league.
But they,
Both,
yeah, I mean,
both of us got
they were
promoted.
decent in their own way, weren't they?
Yeah, that's my point. I'm saying that there's no one good way to win. Okay.
Yeah, I'm across it now. I'm across.
I don't know whether I want you to finish off the first half.
Make him stop.
What else happened? So I want to remark on Hamer before Imo gets to go in on him. Just like I hadn't really paid too much attention to the preseason games, but I was loosely aware that he was going to be like kind of caged animal. And oh my god, he's a bit much, isn't he? Like he's kind of like just a really fizzed up bottle of champagne that's like very posh and fancy, and then he just will explode at some point, and then you don't get to drink the champagne because he's gone. Yeah, I mean, good player. He was good going forward. He had a few shots, always about it, but just flying in on everyone. I didn't really see the kind of side Sammy assessment of him going in with his, how did he put it? Going in with his upper body for every tackle. But yeah, he's on borrowed time for most of the match. And I think if you have fans in that stadium, I think he gets sent off for one of those tackles. Because it was like the ball was nowhere to be seen and he came in from above. And then like really complained to the ref. And I was like,
That's what
is
I
this like
liked
one of
about
those
it.
good strategies, like when your girlfriend accuses you of cheating on them and you just go absolutely livid because you're so offended, but you actually did. Like him, just like go absolutely livid because you know you're guilty.
I loved that. I loved the fact that there were maybe 8 times during the course of a 60-minute spell that I thought Dom was right. I thought his stock in trade was to upper body to go in like you were going to like start on someone in a nightclub that you didn't actually want to have a fight with, Do you know what I mean? Where you would go in like that, but the legs wise, aim straight for the ankles. I thought what he'd got that made him so remarkable was the fact that he was able to do both simultaneously. But like the trilogy there, the triple bit is the kind of the absolute gall, and then the idea that this was somehow a foul every single time. He was like, "You've got to be kidding me again!" You're like, "No, this has happened over and over again in this game. You must realise now, but this is not how this is played." But I think that what is gone ever so slightly missing is I just thought he was brilliant outside of that. Like I thought last season there was a very very clear definition between the kind of the front two midfielders and the back two midfielders, and
Yeah.
I thought he blurred that really well. I thought he was really really responsible all over the pitch, and that me and Paul have talked over and over again about really 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 good midfielders having character, and that Christ, he's the very definition of that, isn't he? He completely owned, one way or another, completely owned that midfield. Imogen, what did you make of him?
I loved him. He had the batshit craziness of Michael Doyle, but he had some foresight as well, and he can deliver a set piece, which has been not hasn't been lacking, but to have a player that contains all of those attributes, I don't think we've had that for a while. And I thought he was great, and I don't care if he's not on the pitch for more than 60 minutes. Robbins might, but I think what he gives us, the bite that he gives us, is worth it. I might not be saying that when he's suspended for 4 games, but I did think when I saw him go off, I was like, oh well, he'll mature. Like Michael Doyle got so much wiser in the way that he played his game, shall we say. I thought, I'll just look up Doyle's stats. I think he was suspended for 9 games last season. I said, that's absurd.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it possible
Where are
his
you
legs
going?
might have gone? Just yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Uh,
So yeah, more of that, please.
Football's got to be fun, hasn't it? And that was the main thing about watching him for those 60 minutes on Saturday. Is there wasn't a single moment where he was involved that wasn't great to watch. But yeah, like you
If
say,
he's
the
this
second that
season's
he's not on the pitch,
Castaneer, then that is an improvement, isn't it? Because he's clearly more gifted than Castaneer, but
yeah,
equally as Hollywood as Castaneer.
yeah, he's box office without a doubt. Right, final musings, Laurie.
Yeah, that's basically it. Just was actually very happy at half time. Me and Imogen had a chat. I was like, we are good. We're a good team, and we're playing against Bristol City, who've spent a lot of money. They're an established championship side with a fancy stadium, and we don't look like we're drowning here, and we don't look like we're scared. And we were making them frustrated, or at least the fan we were with was visibly frustrated. So it was extremely heartwarming. Yeah, it was great.
Right, Imogen, moving on to you for the second half. I want to start off by asking, in Laurie's blog, there was talk of food at half time. I'd like to know more about what was on offer, because I've seen, or at least heard about, the train charcuterie situation. I wonder whether it
Oh,
was quite as elaborate as this.
that is a joy to behold. One day we'll tell you more about it. But for this particular game, well, I was tempted by the promise of curry, and I was sadly misled because said Bristol City fan had cooked for us, and I felt suspicious, but actually it was nice. What was it? Some sort of aubergine thing, Laurie? Did it have a name?
Aubergine Parmigiano, yeah, it was delicious.
Yeah, it was very nice. Homemade garlic bread. We ate like kings. Very pleasant.
And then Imogen bought a shitload of chocolate, as like she always does.
Yeah, that's my contribution. And then we talked about the game at half time. Laurie asked me if the commentator was in fact Clive Eakin because he'd never heard him before, which I don't really know how that's happened, Laurie. I don't know how you didn't know who that was.
I thought that
You
was a
want to talk
joke. Have you
about
not heard Clive Eakin before?
I think I was low level aware of. I know what that man's voice sounded like, but I'd never investigated as to his birth name, I didn't really care.
No. But have you? Under what circumstances have you not watched an iFollow before or anything like that?
I have, but I tend to do it with someone, and then we're talking, and you don't really listen to what he says. And he also has a reputation for saying a lot of stupid stuff, so I think I kind of don't listen to what he says. But I did listen a
I
lot
like the
this
fact that
time.
you've inadvertently put me massively in my place there. I'm like, have you not heard Clive Eakin before? And you're like, yeah, I'm usually watching the game with someone else. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay. No, I'm in my squalid little grief hole here, and just just watching. I thought it's just me and Clive, but then there we go. Right, second half then.
Yeah. There wasn't really much of a drop in tempo. We maintained how we'd been playing it through most of the first half. We were passing it around nicely. They didn't look threatening. We looked like we could build on what we'd done the second half of the first half. Østergaard was looking interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. I think we got a touch of it, like you said. That bicycle kick was delicious, but yeah, I want to see a bit more. A friend of mine used to scout at Brighton and said when he signed for us, he was like, "Oh, he's fantastic. Everyone loves him." So I'm hoping that we see big things from him. He seemed to be decent with set pieces, so well done him. In terms of the tempo, so Giles No Hair looked pretty fast. Admittedly, Giles didn't look that fast when we conceded the first goal, but he picked up the pace and looked to give us some nice options down that left-hand side. And then we had a chance. I think it was Giles. So Hamer had a corner, and it went to an unmarked man in the box. Does anyone remember who it was?
I'm
Fired
not
it at the keeper,
sure,
and
but I
I
think you
thought it
might
was
be.
Giles, but I wasn't sure.
I think Giles is a strange one where this happened against MK Dons as well. Had a number of efforts where he seems like he's not afraid of getting a shot away. I think it was
Yeah.
Giles, but we could easily be proved to be wrong. It's a shame because in the same way that McFadzean seems to get a lot of shots away at the moment, you get the impression that he's not maybe the right person to have those shots.
Yeah. Well, whoever it was unmarked, acres of space, and we didn't take our chance. It was very similar later on for their goal. They were given far too much space, but they took it. I think that seemed to be the main difference between the two sides, and I'm hoping that we can sort that out. I know that we've left people unmarked for set pieces last season. I don't know whether it was just that we didn't get the rub of the green this time, but we're going to be playing better teams than Bristol City, and we've really got to cut that out. But then, as we spoke about, Hamer went on the hour mark, and Sheaf came on. He looked fine. I wasn't. He didn't really make an impression on me. I thought he was solid. And then about 10 minutes later, I think it was, Alan came off. Alan, I thought would look good first half, and I didn't really notice him second. So I presume he maybe his fitness isn't as strong as it could be. And then Tyler came on, and I liked him.
Sorry to interrupt you. I wanted to go into Alan in a little bit more detail. Laurie, did you have a view on Alan's performance at all?
Well, I know exactly what you think about his performance, so why don't you tell us about your opinion,
But I'd say
Joe?
this is the thing. So look, I'm very well aware of how fucking rubbish my opinions are. So I'm not asking you to back up what I've said on some text. I'm saying, what did you think?
I didn't notice him, just like you didn't notice him. I couldn't have told you anything that he did, to be honest. So I don't think that meant he was having a stinker, because there were other players who didn't notice as well. But normally, the main thing I remember him doing / not doing was he had some opportunity that was a very decent one, like in the box or on the edge of the box. I can't remember how he fluffed it up, but he did make a bad decision. And that's all I can tell you about his performance, basically.
But Paul
So
makes a very good point of this that I think is best encapsulated by Frank Musa, is that there are some players for which they have a bad game by being so present, and there are some players for which have a good game by being so absent, and that I think it was the reverse of that this week, where O'Hare was involved in everything, wasn't he? And when it was the idea of bringing Walker on, is that you would have brought Allen off instead. And I'm not acutely aware of Allen having done anything wrong at all the way through the game. It was just a bit of an absence of him. Whereas I don't know whether that's just because the game didn't go down his side or whether or what that is. And it's difficult to know sometimes whether someone is having a very bad game or whether it's what's going on. I just felt like he was. I didn't think he was terrible. I just didn't think he was there particularly. And I wonder whether that's. We still have not seen all of that much since he's joined of Allen. You wonder whether maybe that's him in the same way that Musa sometimes could go 2 or 3 games without really doing anything, and then all of a sudden just like pop up massively for 45 minutes somewhere. Is I'm still intrigued to know whether, and this comes back to the central thing that we've got this season, isn't it? Of we don't know at all how everyone is going to cope. And actually, is that indicative of the fact that Alan either can't keep up with the pace, or is it just that he sort of drops in and out of games and then finds himself like able to exploit space and score 2 goals at whatever point they go?
has he played in the Championship before, like for Burton, or did he kind of always
I
get gotten
think
rid of?
if he did, I think he's 24 now, isn't he, or maybe 25. So
He's young.
if he had have been at Burton, even if he'd have played semi-regularly, he would have been at an age where you'd have expected he wasn't at the level that he's at now. My guess would be that he's not routinely played. I wouldn't have thought he would have played more than 20 games of Championship football at best. It's a shame we haven't got Dom here to, you know, not just speculate.
I know what
Um,
you're saying about Alan. I think he, with Kelly, there are often games where I come away thinking, oh, I couldn't really tell you what Kelly had done if I'm not concentrating on his particular play, if I'm just looking at the game as a whole, and I can't really recall what Kelly's done. Like you were saying about he doesn't mess it up and then go and fix it. He just gets on with the job, and sometimes that makes them more anonymous. And I think sometimes with Alan, he has a similar tendency to do that. You could argue, I guess, he's more of an attacking player, so you want him to make more of an impact. But he didn't. He didn't do anything wrong. I didn't see him out of position. I didn't think he should have been there. He should have been moving forward more. Um,
But I think you've made the
so,
salient
yeah.
point there that it's what actually an absence of product there probably is more forgivable as a defensive player. But actually, when
Yeah,
you've got 3 attacking players and one of them is you, and you can't, you struggle to remember anything that player's done.
yeah,
It's maybe
yeah.
not quite so on. I know what you mean.
he's played 29 games in the Championship. Is my final input on that.
I think a guess from me of 20 is not bad there.
And they got relegated, so that probably just trims off a few of the beneficial appearances.
Okay. How did you work it out? So I was going to say, how did you work that out so quickly? But I realised all you would have needed to have done is realise when they got relegated from the Championship and look up the statistics. So that's probably not as mesmerising as I thought it was. I was
I'm
going to be
Rain Man, Joe.
terribly impressed. But, fair play. Right. Okay. So sorry, Imogen, carry on.
That's okay. So yeah, Walker came on around the 70-minute mark and looked all right. I think he'll be a good addition once his fitness is up. He created a lot of space, and I'm pretty excited to see how he and Dabo are going to look together down that side. But not he. I mean, he wasn't on long enough for you to make a really definitive view of him. You could argue we can't do that for 10 games, but then where would we be on the pod? I think
Can I ask you, Imogen, about what you thought about the sort of the based off a very half an hour was worth of football? What you thought about the long term possibility of him and Godden together being a thing?
Well, they've played together before, haven't they? So I'm hoping that we've got a head start on that. I liked them. They seem to link up reasonably well. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know how willing Robbins will be to move the formations around. He seemed pretty set on it last season. And I don't know how flexible Walker is in terms of the way he plays. Probably again a question for Sido Sammy. But I liked it. I think the biggest problem was once he'd come on, what have we got to bring on? You know, if he's going to be fit, what are we going to get from the bench other than Bakayoko? There wasn't really anything attacking to throw on there. So
I felt more than anything that the thing. So I felt like that substitution was the most natural substitution to make. But then what happened was that we lost the interplay between Giles and O'Hare because O'Hare moved much more central. And so in the end, I thought that Walker and Godden linked up really nicely. But I think that the thing that stood out, albeit in the very scant amount of football that we've had so far, has been that Giles and O'Hare look to have an understanding between each other that really works. And I think it adds that Hammer or Hammer is on that side as well. And I think that there's a fluidity there. I thought that when he moved inside and sat behind the two, I think we lost a lot of that. And admittedly, I thought them two linked together much better than you'd expect of two players who are nominally just kind of on the shoulder goal scorers. And I was
yeah.
surprised to see Walker pass occasionally because I didn't get the impression that he was just going to be this guy, which I want really. It's just someone that's just going to shoot on sight. But yeah, you're right. Is I sort of think I still think that formation works better as two behind and one up front as opposed to the other way around. But it will be interesting to see how that pans out at least.
I don't think anyone's under any illusions that we're going to have a striker who's scoring so many goals they can't possibly be taken out of the team. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. So having
You say that,
the
but
option
Baka has taken the number 20 shirt this season.
having the option to rotate with two decent strikers and then two less decent strikers, I think is going to work out fine.
I can't stand the idea of rotating between two strikers. Can you?
Really?
Yeah, can you? Imogen, what about you?
No, it makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What if they haven't scored for 5 games?
No, not for me.
Then I'd be comfortable.
But I don't understand why there's a disparity between, like, it's an accepted wisdom that you would want an established back four or a back five. Surely that's like that's something that people would want. Why would you not want to just persevere through a bad spell for a striker? For a striker that you think has got some proven quality for scoring goals.
So, what? Because it happened once with Mark McNulty. We
No,
think
no,
it's
no,
just
no,
going to happen.
no. To be fair, yeah, you've killed me on that one. I'm not saying that. I think I don't understand why. I'm not sure there's anything that is to be gained by just constantly switching between Godden and Walker if one of them isn't scoring for a while. They look to me like they're going to be very similar types of striker.
Okay.
Robbins isn't that kind of manager anyway. He's not,
Yeah.
but he doesn't seem to favour tinkering about too much unless he decides he doesn't like you anymore, and then then you're Max
Do you
Bianchi.
two like believe in horoscopes and crystals as well? Like, are we never allowed to change the team ever again in case it like knocks the earth off its axis?
Yeah.
Sorry, if someone hasn't
yeah,
scored for 6 games, give someone else a chance.
Yeah, but 6 games isn't rotation, is it? 6 games is kind of that's
I said 6 because you wouldn't have entertained the idea of 3.
Do you know what?
This
I'm not.
tenancy agreement for strikers has got to last a minimum of like 6 games, according to you.
Yeah, no, I think you should. I think with football, what you should do is you should establish the rules of when you're in and out of the team at the start of the season, and then stick with them rigidly, irrespective of whatever happens. If you're a defender and you keep a clean sheet, whether you're a youth team player, you get to play the next 3 games, even if the next 2 games you concede 10. If you're a striker, if you score 1 goal, 5 games in a row, that's absolutely fine. All positions nailed down with rules like that, then there's no ambiguity for anyone. Everyone knows where they stand.
This sounds a lot like Moneyball. Is this another good Moneyball?
I clearly, you realise that I don't really think that, surely to God.
I have realised it.
Right, we haven't touched on we talked about how all players were absolved of any responsibility for the first goal. Presumably, that's going to be the same with the second goal, right?
I mean, maybe for Laurie.
Only Ed Wilson was here.
Sorry.
Just go on. Tell them what
Okay.
happened to the goal.
Thank you. That's sweet. Thanks. Well, they had a corner, and this Thomas Callis chap was completely unmarked. He's in acres of space. Shipley was sort of dithering around somewhere nearby. Then he moved into more acres of space, and Shipley remained where he was, and he just we didn't even slot it in. It wasn't a very elegant goal, but that didn't seem to matter. And Shipley was just nowhere to be seen. It was inexplicable to me what they were doing. There was no shape, and it upset me quite a lot.
His head and hands was quite funny though, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, you know how you could have avoided that, Jordan?
He looks over his shoulder, and I'm not really sure what he's looking at because he looks behind him, presumably sees nothing. And then he's like, "Cool,
ball watching.
I'm in the clear here." Looks back at the ball, and then Callas comes in, powers the header into the corner, and Shipley looks at him like he's seen like Amelia Earhart. It's just like, no way, head in hands, just like you cannot be serious. Like, mate, what possible job are you doing in the box if you're not going to be marking someone? You're not there to, I don't know, buy some candy floss. It's not a big day out in the penalty box. Like, that's your job. So sorry, Jordan. It's a big boo-boo.
I'd like to highlight a quick 1-2 punch of, bearing in mind that we've got Laurie on the podcast, probably the two single most poshest things I've ever heard, which is one you describing it as not the most elegant goal I've seen, which apparently doesn't seem to matter, which is which is fabulous. But then it was the
Only
disdain.
elegant goals should count.
Yeah, which is the disdain that you then followed that up with with "Come on, Jordan." Jordan there, like it felt like if he was called Cameron or something, that would have been you're like, "Come on, Jordan." There was it. You know, people like you should be doing utilitarian jobs like marking players better than this.
I've spent a lot of time with Laurie recently. I can only apologise.
I think I wouldn't let yourself off the hook here, Imogen. You are called Imogen after all. Yeah. So that was what 82nd minute. To what extent did we deserve that?
I didn't think we did. I thought we looked confident. You can never feel completely at ease. Well, I never feel completely at ease with Cobb in the last 10 minutes, but They didn't look, even when they got the ball in the final third. Bristol City didn't look like they were going to do much with it. But we made it so easy for them. And once they scored, we never then looked like we were going to come back with anything meaningful. They had another attack, and their number 14 skied it, but
hit the bar.
Huh? Hit the bar.
Yeah.
On that last one, did he?
Yeah.
I thought he skied it.
Because Danny was going ape about how he thought Vyman was rubbish, and then Vyman steps in from the centre and just smashes one against, admittedly, the very top of the bar. But I was like, that didn't look awful. Danny was like, trust me, it was rubbish. But then we did have one chance when Tyler Walker got kind of down the right and did that neat pullback for Godden, who didn't really seem to be expecting it. And it was a really good pullback. And like you say, Joey, I'm kind of expecting Tyler Walker to shoot at all times. And so when he did something that was very much a pass to his rival striker, I was like, oh, maybe he's a nice guy. But yeah, I think that was probably our best chance. And then they hit the bar.
So overall, and I know that we don't get any kind of cosmic sort of alignment with this. Do we think that we deserved a point out of that game, or 3 points out of that game? Laurie, what would you say?
I think a draw would have been okay, and I don't think Bristol City would have been like that was wildly unjust if we'd won, because we played a lot of good football. We had, like, I know you don't get points for possession. We had 61% possession in the first half. That's like pretty exceptional. And yeah, I think we just looked like a really good team. We didn't really miss too many chances. Like we hit the post like multiple times. Bristol City were good from set pieces and from like deep crosses, and that's where they kind of exposed us. I think we weren't really in the same ballpark as them defending
Again,
those kind of things.
the disdain on your voice. Deep crosses and set pieces. So, like, what is that not good
so
enough? Is that
agricultural,
not
isn't
real
it?
football? Is that
Crying out for
not good
elegance,
enough?
and we're
No.
getting deep crosses. Worth mentioning Morosi's inexplicable drop of the ball, which was a little bit scary, but he got away with it. But
Yeah, and
I
I
think
thought for the rest of the game he was all right. There was a glaring error, but I thought he dealt with the rest of it pretty well.
He's got
he's
the
been getting
air
a
of
bit
a
of jip
keeper
in
at the minute
pre-season,
who is.
hasn't he?
Sorry, go on, mate.
No, just he's been getting a bit of jip in pre-season, hasn't he?
Well, he's got the air of a keeper at the minute that has been celebrating a league win very hard. Just he for someone that was such a reassuring presence last season. I don't think it's going to be like a level step up for him. He just looks unbelievably rusty. Just really, really like a player that hasn't played for a long time, and that still. I thought he made one or two really good saves. There was one where he picked it right towards the start of the first half, held it really well as part of a save, and still looks like a really good quality keeper. But that on top of that, also in possession, looks like he's borrowed Jordan Shipley's legs occasionally. If that's not too unkind. Right, we're going to go and talk to Dom, and then we're going to talk about what we've learned from the first two games very briefly, and what we would do ahead of. We're not going to acknowledge the Gillingham game, by the way. I know it exists, but it's not real, is it? So we're going to talk about what happens in the QPR game afterwards. This is Dom. Right, hi Dom.
Hi there.
Right, QPR. Another like a proper football club that we're going to play. How are we going to do?
Yeah, so QPR are possibly the funnest team in the Championship in that they have quite a few exciting attacking players and just basically no defence. They had an absolutely horrific record last season in terms of keeping clean sheets, and it was all about the sort of brilliant attacking play. Had a Barry Eze last year who's gone to Crystal Palace, having been possibly the best player in the Championship last season, or at least one of them. But they do have quite a few good attacking players, regardless of that. The player expected to take up to take Barry Eze's seat in the team is Elias Chair. Yes, that was very.
That'll do. Yeah.
But I was going forward, but yeah, he's sort of a little kind of wizard of a footballer with excellent touch and has an eye for just some absolutely spectacular goals. He had a loan spell at Stevenage about 2 years ago where all he did every other game was score a goal from about 35, 40 yards out. He's just a brilliant player to watch. And he got some pace around him in Bright Sai Samuel and Olami Shadipo, who's coming back from quite a serious injury, but has been fairly exciting when brought back. And then around him this season, they've brought in Lyndon Dykes from Livingston, who's just an absolute battering ram of a centre forward. Just looks a very just nasty player. Maybe not an out and out goal scorer, but someone who's going to knock players out of the way. You can just feel that he's someone who's going to create a lot of space for Chair and Sai Samuel around him. But yeah, at the back, it's a completely different story. Actually, sort of quite a curious thing is QPR don't seem to want to play their best goalkeeper, who's Senny Dieng, who was unknown at Doncaster last year. Looks like it's sort of an issue to do with getting him to sign a new contract, because their other two goalkeepers, including the guy called Liam Kelly, who is actually quite good at shot stopping, but can be fairly ropey at the other elements of being a goalkeeper. So yeah, it's sort of a very weird and unbalanced side. Another issue to have is left back Ryan Manning, who's very good at going forward, having been sort of a central attacking midfielder. He's been switched to left back and can get up and score goals and create assists. He looks like he's in a bit of a contract dispute too. So it's quite a weird team, but they did get off to a good start last week, beating Nottingham Forest 2-0. Although I wonder whether over the next month or so we'll find out that actually beating Nottingham Forest might not be as impressive as it would otherwise seem.
The thing is with that is that they're now coming up against us, and I think we'd have probably said that Bristol City were a disjointed team who possibly might get better as the season goes on with everything that's happened to them over the last however long. Actually, with that said, will they still have enough to take us apart, do you think?
It's sort of a hard one with QPR, because they do have Chair and Asai Samuel in particular, who are just absolutely devastating players when they fancy it. But it's just sort of that supporting cast around them isn't brilliant, and the balance of the team isn't great. They don't really have even a defensive midfielder. They play Jeff Cameron there, who I remember watching when we beat Stoke in the FA Cup. I remember very specifically thinking to myself, wow, that guy can't pass a football. And yeah, playing him in defensive midfield doesn't seem a great idea. And they have quite a few sort of central midfielders who are just kind of there, who aren't particularly sort of defensive minded, aren't particularly brilliant going forward. So yes, it is just quite a strange team. They can just rattle goals past things, but they are just as likely to chuck them in the other end. So it's just about whether we can sort of contain that attacking threat enough to give ourselves half a chance at their defence. It's going to be quite an interesting game. I can see QPR sort of being, as they were last year, sort of occasionally capable of putting a run together, but otherwise sort of looking at sort of that lower end of mid-table, they are, yeah, just as I've said again and again, they are incredibly soft at the back.
It's a reductive question, but if we're going to look out for one of their players, who would you pick out as their danger man?
Oh, Elias Chair all day.
Okay, thank you, Dom. Right, okay. Laurie, I'm going to start with you. So, any conclusions that you would draw? I know this is very difficult because we're only 2 games in, and even one of those games is questionable, but anything that you would want us to take into the game on Friday?
I would basically do exactly the same again. Obviously, the first goal was completely undefendable and we couldn't have done anything about it. So just crack on in the same way. I don't think anyone played badly enough for you to, or badly enough without you expecting them to. Like, obviously, McFadzean is the weak link in this team. I thought Pask looked pretty good until he got knackered at the end. I am still breaking through, doing a great job. Lovely young player. Everyone was dead pleased with Ostergaard. I didn't really notice him, but I'm happy to go with the general opinion of Ostergaard. Kelly might be out, so maybe that prompts a rejig. I thought Sheaf was really nice to see someone actually delivering free kicks and corners, like they were aiming for something. I know that sounds like a minimal requirement for set piece delivery, but
like Joe Cole's set pieces.
Like Joe Cole, yeah. And presumably Michael Rose, is he unfit or something? Why wasn't he?
No, him and Dubbo have been injured in pre-season, haven't they? That's why they arranged that Solihull game so that them two could play a game of football match.
Okay, So who do you think will make way for Rose then?
That's the good
Perhaps-
question, which I'd like to throw to Imogen.
Difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to know. I mean, I don't know whether he's going to throw him in straight away. He's been out for quite a while. That's my idea of fudging the question. I don't know.
He's
I
been out
guess so. The
manoeuvring
thing
moves
is,
at other clubs.
so I guess the thing is the real question is when Robbins has everyone fit, does McFadzean drop out? I guess is the question.
Well, yeah, but Robbins is.
Yes, with a not with a capital Y though.
I wonder whether, and this feels insane to say, and it also feels like anything that we say at this point of the start of the season is terribly reactionary. I wonder whether actually, if we talked in the pre-season pod about us wanting to sign a player of sort of David Moylanus, where they might not play all that regularly, but they would have an influence on the squad. I do wonder a little bit whether actually what we need is a like when we signed McFadzean last season, but the championships version, which
Yeah.
presumably,
Who would that
terrifyingly,
be?
is Richard Keogh.
Surely Richard Keogh, yeah.
But I'm not sure I want that to happen. But you know what I mean? Is I feel like Hyam, Rose, and Ostergaard feel like three really good options out of two to go either side of someone that's going to be very like assured and experienced. I don't know whether
Yeah.
looking at it now is that those three might be a bit naive together. I'm looking
I'd
for
give
a
it a whirl
reaction
at
there, but
least.
I don't know if there's a reaction. It's possible to have a reaction because the season still hasn't really started, has it?
Well, if we take anything from the kind of Doyle effect, and it's like, oh, we can't get rid of Doyle because he's such like massive influence on the pitch, and it's like, yeah. Like as soon as he was gone, it was just like, God, we should have done that ages ago. He was clearly the weak link in this team, and I mean, I'm not saying it's the same. McFadzean makes like a clanging error like once every 6 games, whereas Doyle was getting to a bit above that. But he also isn't getting any younger, and he has made it clear before that he's not good enough for this level. So,
Do you not
but I
think that?
do take the experience point.
Do you not think that McFadzean last season, every time that we came up against a team that was going to really test us, like struggled, and it was in the games where he was able to marshal a defence against a team that might have caused us trouble that we're able to snuff out. They were when it was good.
Yes, I
which I know,
can't disagree with
is
that.
revisionist history because we happened to be a team last season that was on the front foot most of the time. But that I wonder if he had have been our leading light last season and we were under the cosh all the way through League One. I just think of that Rotherham game where we got beat 3-0 and he was just horrendous. I do wonder whether if we'd have been really, really pushed all season, whether how good he would have been. And that's what this season is going to be. Surely is it's going to
I find
be.
it hard to believe that game happened last year. It
Yeah, it's a
just
bit mad,
doesn't
isn't it?
shine with the season. I was there, I was physically there, and it was probably one of the most chastening experiences as a Cov fan in the last like couple of years. How did that
Really?
happen last
It
year?
was the only. Well, the main thing that was jarring about it was the fact that it was the only bad game of last season, wasn't it? Like there were games that you would have wished had have gone a different way, but that to say outright like cringeworthy bad was the one that was really stuck out as being horrible, wasn't it? Are you thinking for other ways to
So
say
I'm just
that?
thinking about the picnic we had on the way home, which was absolutely
Oh, it was
amazing.
lovely.
That was the only thing that
Yeah,
saved
it's
it.
really nice. Yeah, I enjoyed
Okay,
that.
right. Let's finish things off by looking forward to QPR. Laurie, any sort of input into what that's going to look like?
Well, I hope so, because I like periodically get rung up by Sky, who can't be bothered to do any research. They still think I'm like the foremost authority on Cov when it's clearly Dom. And so I'm actually going on Sky on Wednesday about talking about this game. So I need to really find out a bit more about Cov. and QPR before that point. So chat, ask me again on Wednesday, and I'll let you know. But
Well, you know,
far,
should you wish to know more about QPR, try listening to the Neil Lamptey show where Dom has actually
getting quite
where Dom
meta.
has been on maybe, you know, for the listeners' ears about what 15 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago or so, where he, you know, that will have been yeah. So anybody that's listening that wants to know, you know, what QPR might be like, listen to this podcast that you listen to now.
So what would you ask me then if you hadn't asked me about what QPR
No,
are
I'm
like?
asking you. Oh, no, I thought you might have a different, you know, version of things. I thought you might have, you know, I thought you might have any opinion about football whatsoever, basically. That isn't. Oh, I had a fucking salami
Got
Milano before.
loads of opinions. Like I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be rooting for us,
Mm.
and it's game number 2 of the league season. Like we don't know anything. Let's see what happens. Keep the same team. Don't change it. Bring Hamer off at half time. Rinse and repeat.
And yet, you were saying to me earlier when I said keep the same team no matter whether anyone scores goals or not. That was ridiculous. It just goes to show how fickle some football fans are. Right, okay, I think that's probably us done then. Is it? Anyone got anything else they want to add before we wrap things up? Ourselves.
I did my first blog in about 6 months, so I'd like people to go and read it.
Well, you want people to go and read it, obviously, but that wasn't what I was saying.
Yeah, I'd
No,
love
go
it.
on. I'm joking. Where can they go?
The Lonely Season, singular, .club. Singular, that's not included. The Lonely Season .club.
Okay. So the lonelyseasons.club. Imogen, anything that you want to plug?
No, I'm just going to go and feed my ponies and go to Laurie's cousin's house and drink some of his champagne, I think.
Fabulous. Okay. Thank you both very much. Customarily, when someone says, I know I'm a lower status than both of you, but customarily, someone might say thank you back when I
You
say
normally go name by name, though.
to you. Well, yeah, but I sometimes, you know, but I'm a maverick. I can switch it up. Laurie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph. It's been a pleasure.
Imogen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joey.
Listener, thank you very much. Bye bye.